In the quiet farming town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, almost nobody suspected that one of the most disturbing criminal cases in American history was unfolding behind the walls of an isolated farmhouse. To the people around him, Ed Gein appeared unusual but harmless. He was quiet, socially awkward, and kept mostly to himself. He worked odd jobs around town and was known by locals as an eccentric but relatively ordinary man. But behind that quiet image was a deeply troubled individual shaped by years of isolation and psychological instability. Ed Gein was born in 1906 and raised by a strict and controlling mother named Augusta Gein. She isolated Ed and his brother from much of society and filled their childhood with extreme religious teachings. Relationships, friendships, and much of the outside world were portrayed as immoral or dangerous. Over time, Ed developed an intense emotional attachment to his mother. When she died in 1945, his mental state appeared to deteriorate rapidly. He began living alone in the family farmhouse, sealing off certain rooms almost like a memorial to her memory. As the years passed, Gein became increasingly disconnected from reality and developed disturbing obsessions involving death and grave robbing. Everything changed in 1957 after the disappearance of local hardware store owner Bernice Warden's. Police investigating the case were led to Gein's remote farmhouse, where they uncovered evidence linking him to multiple crimes and extremely disturbing activities involving human remains taken from graveyards. The investigation shocked both the local community and the entire country. Gein later confessed to killing Bernice Warden's and another woman named Mary Hogan. However, much of the horror surrounding the case came from the bizarre and deeply unsettling discoveries found inside his home. Psychologists believed Gein suffered from severe mental illness and unresolved trauma connected to his mother's death. Investigators later suggested many of his actions were driven by obsession, isolation, and a distorted sense of identity. The case quickly became one of the most infamous crime stories in American history. It also inspired several iconic horror characters in film, including Norman Bates from Psycho, Leatherface from the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. Although movies exaggerated many aspects of the story, the real-life case was disturbing enough to leave a permanent mark on popular culture. Ed Gein was eventually declared mentally unfit to stand trial and spent the remainder of his life in psychiatric institutions. He died in 1984 at the age of 77. Decades later, the story of Ed Gein still remains one of the most unsettling criminal cases ever documented, a reminder that some of history's darkest stories can emerge from the most ordinary places.